Good evening and welcome to the November 14th meeting of the Westford Select Board. This meeting is being recorded, and we will start as we always do with the pledges of allegiance, led tonight by Chris.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome all. We're going to start off with open forum, and first up we have an announcement of an award received, and our Chief of Police, Mark Chambers, is going to tell us about that.
I am.
I think.
I'll just stand. It shouldn't be too long. So every year we work closely with AAA New England and submit our traffic citations and statistics along with our accident information to AAA. And this year we were awarded the Silver Award based upon our statistics, our efforts at traffic enforcement. We had received gold in the past, but I guess we just didn't write enough tickets for them. So, and we also did nominate Officer Dave Silton, who was one of our new traffic officers, for a Traffic Safety Hero Award because of all the work that he's done for the department and traffic safety, and actually his statistics and what he does for the town actually helps us secure additional funding for grant work. And we did just get awarded a new grant, our traffic enforcement grant, which we have applied for every year, and the state just put out the announcement recently on that as well. So good work by our guys, and obviously traffic enforcement is one of our top priorities in this town.
It's great. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. And congratulations, and our thanks to Officer Silton as well. Thank you. And Kristen, I think you have a few things too.
So I'd like to congratulate Mark Warren, who is our water superintendent with the town of Westford. I'm reading a posting from the Mass Waterworks Association in which Mark was president for the past year. So Mark Warren has served as Mass Waterworks Association president from November of 2022 to November of 2023. Mass Waterworks is a nonprofit that provides education and training to water professionals. Mark has been on the board of directors at Mass Waterworks since November of 2018. Prior to his service on that board, Mark was actively involved in the Waterworks Association's Education Committee, serving as co-chair for that committee of several years. For his contributions to that committee, Mark was a recipient of the association's 2018 Harold Fletcher Award, fitting since this award was named after former Westford water superintendent, who also had a commitment to Waterworks continuing education. Mark continues to advise Mass Waterworks training coordinator on courses that would help operators keep up to date on the latest technology, skills, and regulation so they can ensure they are staying on top of what is needed to provide clean drinking water to their customers. Mark has shown outstanding leadership in his roles at Mass Waterworks. He will remain on the board as past president until November of 2024. And both myself, Steve Cronin, and the executive director of Mass Waterworks want to state that Westford is certainly very fortunate to have such a dedicated waterworks professional at the helm of our water department. So congratulations to Mark.
Thank you. Congratulations to Mark.
Great. The next item is Land Use Director Jeff Morissette wanted me to advise the public and the board that there is currently a survey available on the town of Westford's website related to housing needs for seniors and adults 55 and older. This survey is in consultation with the work that we're doing through the MBTA Communities Committee that will inform the zoning bylaws that may come before the town meeting in March of 2024. So if you'd like to fill out that survey, we've posted it on the town of Westford's webpage, Facebook, and Twitter. If you'd rather receive a paper copy, you can come get one at the Town Hall, the Land Use Management Department, the Cameron Senior Center, or the Fletcher Library. And that survey is due on December 4th, and we're looking forward to receiving feedback from that. Anything else from that committee, John?
That's an easy survey.
Okay, easy survey. The last item I have is the town hall operating hours for November and December of 2023. As you all know, we were closed on Friday in observance of Veterans Day. We'll be closing the town hall at noontime on Wednesday before Thanksgiving and reopening the Monday after Thanksgiving. We'll be closing at noontime on the Friday before Christmas holiday and reopening that Tuesday after, as Christmas is on a Monday, and we'll be closing at noon on the Friday before the New Year's holiday and reopening the Tuesday following, as New Year's is on Monday. So we'll be posting all of that up on the webpage as well, and our departments will be fully open to service anyone in need outside of those hours.
Thank you so much. Any other open forum items from the board? Anything from the public tonight? Okay, we'll move on to our 7:05 item, which is the consent agenda, and a request to approve the following. First up is a road and street closure. The event is the Live Nativity at the United Methodist Church. Applicant's David Welsh. The date is Sunday, December 17th, 2023. Location is 10 Church Street to the intersection with Broadway Street. Time is 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. A town common and bandstand request from the Hanukkah menorah display. The applicant is Shabbat of Nashua Valley. The dates are Thursday, December 7th to Friday, December 15th, 2023. The applicant is Shabbat of Neshoba Valley. The date is December 10th, and the time is 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Also, we have a request for the Christmas Eve service. The applicant is Cornerstone Congregational Church. The date is December 24th, 2023. The time is 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have a number of banner requests. First up is a Santa Tour 2023. The applicant is the Westford Firefighters Association. The dates are November 27th through December 4th, 2023, and the location is First Parish Church. Another event is the annual Christmas Tree Collection. The applicant is the Westford Firefighters Association. The dates are December 29th, 2023 to January 8th, 2023.
2024.
2024, you're correct. Thank you.
Apologize for that
Thank you.
error.
Good,
Thank you.
good catch. Location is First Parish Church. Another event, Class of 2024 graduation, which is June 7th, 2024, planning ahead. Westford Education Foundation is the applicant. The dates are May 31st through June 10th, 2024. Location is First Parish Church. And finally, Westfest, the applicant is the Westford Education Foundation. The dates are September 20 through September 30, 2024. And again, the location is First Parish Church. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right, thank you very much. Next up for us is public hearing. It's a request to amend a Mass General Law, Chapter 148-13, license to store flammables, combustibles, or explosives on land in buildings or structures at 1 Oak Hill Road to reflect the new owner, Westford Brookside 54 LLC, and the tank size as quantity is presented in the application. The application itself is in the packet. Patty, is there anything?
Move to open the public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing, please, and a second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. We're now in public hearing. Patty, is there anything special we should be taking note of here?
I know the gentleman is here. There he is, from Brookside. And this has been a couple months in the works. There's been a lot of things that have gone on. I've learned all about trenches. And they have completed everything, and they basically need you to give the final approval, you being the board. I don't know if he wants to say anything, but it's all in order.
Yeah, well, welcome. I'm glad you're able to come tonight. Any questions for the applicant or related to the application? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Public comment, is it the public hearing?
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's take a minute for public comment. Any comment from the public? Okay, good. There's seeing none. Let's see, I had a motion and a second, so all in favor of approving the application?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous, and I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for being here, and thanks
Thank you.
for,
Welcome to Westford.
yeah, thanks for doing business here in Westford. Okay, 7:12 is a public hearing as well, classification of real estate.
So we cannot open the public hearing until 7:12. I don't
Okay.
know if you want to go over,
Yeah, why don't we hop to,
Up to minutes.
okay, yeah, let's do minutes.
sure, yep.
So minutes for release, regular session from September 12th, September 18th, which was joint with the planning board, September 26th, and also October 10th, all 2023. Any comments or questions related to the minutes?
Good.
Okay, if there's no comments or changes, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
But can I note that I'm abstaining from October 10th because I wasn't there?
so noted. So noted. Since we're at that section, why don't we do a couple of the town manager's report items, if we could? Kristen?
Sure, I will do, I'll do the grants, because, the MOU with Bootstrap and, the grant application for the, Mass Municipal Energy, might have others on the line that are not there yet, so,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Sure.
So very proud to announce that the town of Westford was awarded 2 grants through the Community One Stop program with the state. One being the Housing Choice Grant Program for the Graniteville Infrastructure Feasibility Study and Market Study in the amount of $190,000 as requested by the town manager's office. And the Massachusetts Development Finance Agency awarded the town a brownfield site remediation grant in the amount of $250,000 for the 12 North Main Street, and that is in addition to the $500,000 that we received from the EPA. So we'll be, using that to enhance the cleanup on that site.
Oh, that's great news. And so would you like do you need an approval from us there?
Yes, to
Okay.
sign off on
So I'll
those
entertain a
grants.
motion to approve that particular grant.
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept the following grant. And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. In the 1 minute we have, anything else you want to pick off here?
I mean, I could certainly do all of the contracts if you'd entertain that, or if you want to wait, we can wait.
You know what, we're so close now, why don't we just wait?
Sure.
Okay, we are now at 7:12. We have a public hearing, which is the classification of real and personal property tax to establish the tax rate for fiscal year 2024. Will be joining us, and I'll entertain a motion to open public hearing. A second? Second. All in favor? Great. Welcome, Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that okay? Hopefully everybody can hear me.
That's great.
Okay. Great. My name is Will. First of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, board members. My name is Will Nacer. I'm the Chief Assessor for the town, and I'm here tonight. This is my 3rd year doing this, presenting the tax classification hearing for the town in order to choose tax burdens for the town in terms of property classifications. So I'd like to start with just first of all thanking my 2 board members. I believe they've both been on for 23 plus years, Titus Palmer and Diane Holmes, who are strong members that remain on the, we've gone through a few, we've gone through other members, but they've remained. Is that me, or is that something else?
I'm not sure what that is. Why don't we keep going, and if it happens, we'll pause and
I got it.
diagnose.
Just a little riff.
I have a few tricks up my sleeve, but not that one. Okay. So I always start with the basics here. So the year of fiscal or tax year 2024 is an interim tax year. We have an interim year. We have revaluations or certification years. So this is an interim year. The value assessment date is January 1st of 2023 for tax year 2024. So when we look at the values, we're analyzing values. The residential values are all from calendar year 2022, so we're reviewing those sales of 2022, 2022, and sometimes we need to use, if we don't have enough sales, we go into calendar year 2023. Commercial industrial values, we look at returns of information, so you're valuing that property on income and expense, again, from 2022, calendar year 2022, excuse me. And then personal property values, cost tables, and the written returns we get from the same year, 2022. Okay. So we look at the big picture. What's our value change year to year? So from tax year or fiscal year '23 to fiscal year '24. Looking at that, there's a lot of information here, a lot of columns. Look at that far right column, that's our percentage change. Just looking at the overall change of 9.4% for the town. And the change is really in the residential, and we have just a slight decrease in the commercial industrial values, and the personal property was up, and that's due to our large utility companies' valuation. And also, I put on here the exempt value, so it's pretty significant, over 466 million. Next one. Just a little narrative, again, just summarizing the value changes. So residential class is increased by about 10.5%, and the lion's share of the residential class is single-family homes, no surprise. And residential condominiums make up 17% of that class as well. Commercial class went down by about 1% in value, 265 parcels. Industrial class decreased by about 1%. 111 parcels are categorized that way. And then our personal property, as I mentioned, we had almost 9% increase in that, and there's 214 accounts. Some of the trends and some of the things I wanted to note, the residential parcel increase for single family, that's 28. So that's 28 new single family homes that have come in, new development. Condominium parcel increased as well, so we had a development go in. We had a decrease in the commercial by one parcel, and the industrial remained the same. Personal property, that's our smallest area of valuation. So we have two segments. We have locally valued personal property, and we have state valued. So there's a small breakdown there, but the second area is your local shops and restaurants and retail and so forth. That makes up the most amount of counts, but the least amount of value when we look at that class. Okay. So I put together just the current year and the previous 9 years of taxable value. So again, just showing a trend here or what's going on year to year. Again, putting the year type in the far left column, and then the percentage change from the previous year in the far right column. So pretty significant jumps in the last few years. We've gone from over 5.4 billion to 6.7 billion in value. So those are pretty big numbers. So as I drill down a little bit and talk about the specifics of the hearing, what is the tax levy? So I just put this as a baseline. Tax levy is the dollar amount a community raises through real and personal property tax each fiscal year. The tax levy generates the largest revenue source. It's the largest revenue source that funds communities through their annual town budget. The levy amount, or the estimated levy amount, is $92,713,046. The next piece we talk about is the new growth. New growth is the new construction value increase or items not previously assessed, which is added to increased value in either the real or the personal property. And then that amount is converted to a tax amount as part of that the Proposition 2.5 calculation. So the new growth valuation is $58,053,694. So we multiply that by the previous year's tax rate and come up with a dollar amount to add to that calculation. So that number is $856,873. That's our new growth for this year. It's worth noting too, the finance director, we put a target on that, so we've been able to achieve kind of what our number's been for the last few years, which is good. Next slide is the new growth, just looking at, again, a historic look at it. The top one is the current fiscal year. I've broken it down into both the residential, CIP stands for commercial, industrial, personal. You can see that the new growth of the residential is certainly is well outpacing anything in the commercial, industrial, personal area. So that's our total, the 58 million. The translation multiplied by the tax rate is 856,873. And then just looking at the previous years, we had pretty good growth in 20 and 21, and I believe that was prior to when I was here, but that's due to the apartments that went in. And on to the next one. So what do? We have a calculation we go through. So we look at last year's, the fiscal 23, the levy amount. We add in amended new growth, come up with a subtotal. We multiply that by 2.5%. So that's our 2.2 million. We add in the new growth, the number that I've just been talking about, the 856,000. We have another subtotal, and then we add in our debt exclusion of 1.4 million, and then we come up with our new levy amount for fiscal 24. The amount to be raised to run the town of Westford is about over 140 million. Of that 140 million, 66% of that comes from the levy. The other amount is stuff I don't really know too much about, but Dan could explain. That's the receipts and revenue. That's 34% of it. But it's a significant amount, obviously, coming from real estate and personal property. So we go through the process of converting tax value to tax. So we have the tax rate setting process. Our job as assessors is we work through the fiscal year to adjust and refine the property, the personal and real property values. We submit and receive approvals from the Department of Revenue. We work under the Division of Local Services, so we get approvals on value and on new growth. And then I work with the finance director, with Dan, Jesse the accountant, and Christine, our treasurer tax collector. We complete the recap documents, and our town clerk, Patty, also helps with that. And we hold the hearing that we're doing right now, and you'll choose the tax burdens for the taxpayers, and then I submit your choices to the state for a tax rate approval. So go through a step process where we develop the tax rate. First, we're establishing and getting approved values. We do have that already, so those numbers, that's the 6.7 billion in value. That's the approved number for this year for the total taxable value for the town. Step 2, we determine a single rate. So if we look at it's a simple math equation. We're just taking what the tax levy is, dividing it by that 6.2 billion, coming up with the tax rate, an estimated tax rate of 1377. I'm saying estimated rate because it's not approved yet, and sometimes that changes a penny or two during the recap process. So if we apply the average single-family value times that tax rate, our value is 756,500. And our real estate tax amount would be 10,417, and that's just the real estate. It doesn't include the CPA. Worth noting is last year's state average was about 600,000 for single-family value, and the average tax amount, real estate tax amount, was slightly over 7,000. So we're above both of those. Okay, and again, just to look at the value, tax bill, and percentage increases, looking at the current year and previous 9 years, The yellow band is highlighting this year. So if you look at that far right-hand column, tax bill amount increase from previous year. So we're estimating about a 3% increase from the previous year and about $300 increase. Again, that's the average. And these are all average single family. That's kind of the benchmark we've been using. So if you look at the overall average, what's gone on for 10 years, we've been slightly over $300 each year for an average increase. And we continue with the development of the tax rate. So we also determine a split tax rate, or I determine a split tax rate. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes things with this residential factor and shifting of the tax rate. Traditionally, Westford has had a single tax rate, but just informationally, a residential factor of less than 1 reduces the share of the tax levy paid by residential and open space classes, and increases the share paid by commercial industrial properties and personal property businesses. So again, you can shift. I've been in communities that have done a shift. This community has not done that, and that's really based on the amount of residential value we have. The commercial, industrial, and personal taxpayers cannot pay, so there's a limit. They cannot pay more than 150% of that full and fair cash value. And the residential and open space must pay at least 65% of that. And some communities can go up to 175% on the shift. So step 4, I just look at last year, what it looked like. The natural full value shares, so look very similar to this year. The residential at 0.89 and the commercial industrial at about 0.1. The tax rate last year was $14.76 for all classes. So the next slide shows a split tax rate. And again, when you do a split rate, you're not gaining any more money. You're just shifting the burden from one area to another, or even within the class, you can do that with both residential and commercial. So the top line shows the shift, no shift. That would be choosing 1, and the residential factor would be 1 or 100. And you would have a standard rate for everybody at $13.77. The increments below the black line would be a shift of 10%, 20, 30, 40, and then the maximum of 1.5 or 50%. And you can see if you just use, say, $1 million. So if you're using the maximum and you're using a residential, so residential house at $1 million would be $12,990. A commercial property that was $1 million would be $20,660. So you can see how that shift works with the multiplier of, using, say, $1 million. Step 6 is just to lay out the choices. So this is the part where you would, or where I'm saying you have the choice to make make things a single rate for all property classes, or choose a split rate. If you choose a split rate, you're burdening either probably the commercial, industrial, and personal at a higher level than the residential. There are other options communities can choose, such as the commercial exemption, small commercial exemption, which I believe previously, about 4 years ago, that's the last time you've had that, the small commercial exemption. Also the residential exemption and the open space discount. So those are the community other community options. The small commercial exemption, there's only 14 out of 352 taxing places in Massachusetts. There's 18 communities that use the residential exemption, and there's only one that uses an open space discount. So they aren't very popular options. And that, the protocol for the hearing is to make a decision on the options, and then the town clerk would confirm the meeting and the voting, and then tomorrow or the next day I would submit the information to the state for approval. So with that all being said, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
First, any questions for Will?
I have a couple.
Yeah, great.
I know that the commercial and industrial bases, they've each decreased by about 1%, you said. Is that
Right.
is that due to vacancies that we have here in town?
Right, so we have some vacancies. We're looking at the sales each year as well. So you're doing two approaches when you're looking at commercial or income-producing properties. One, you're looking at sales to see where the sale prices are, and two, you're looking at income and expense returns to see if there's an adjustment to the value downward due to vacancies, just in general, what's happening in the market with those types of properties. So we are seeing that.
And then my other question is, we have like almost 466 million 5.5 in exempt property.
Mhm.
So I know MIT is exempt.
Right.
What else makes up that huge number here? I'm just
Well,
curious.
the building where all of the
right.
schools,
Okay.
all of
of
the
our town and
government
municipal,
buildings,
yep.
any
Churches.
religious
I
buildings.
think it's
It's a
important.
big number.
The public understand that, where that number comes from.
Right, it is a big number.
Since this is a public hearing, if there's any questions from the public too, we can entertain those as well.
I had a question.
Yep.
So, is there any data that shows if a community enacts this small commercial exemption, that there's a positive impact to the number of businesses that come into the community?
I don't have that. And maybe somebody that was here when you had that, if you knew, but I don't have any information to that effect.
When about 3 years ago, there was a committee formed or task force formed to look at the split tax rate versus single tax rate, and one of the issues that it took up was the small commercial exemption. And I think that it was a combination of very few people being eligible, a very small dollar amount, and complexity to administer that led the committee at that time to recommend to not continue to do it.
Thank you.
Also, that committee sort of examined the question, had public response, talked to businesses, and for the reasons I think maybe referred to in one of the things in our packet, because Westford has such a high residential ratio, in order to make any real difference to the residents, you have to make a substantial difference to the businesses, and the concern was that we want to remain competitive against our neighbors and be an attractive places for business to locate. And other communities that are adjacent to us had single tax rates. We didn't want to create a tax disincentive for what would have been a pretty small benefit to the resident, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So that was the argument at the time. Yep.
Also, as I recall, so it's also a misnomer that we think that every small business would benefit, but it's based upon the property. So if you've got like a strip mall with 12 businesses, the taxing authority is the owner of the strip mall, not each business. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, we're going to help out small businesses. You may not be. You may just helping out the landlord.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. That was the reason. Intuitively, you'd think you'd be, just what Scott said, intuitively you'd think you'd be helping local businesses like a barber shop.
Yeah.
But that's not actually the way it works.
Okay.
Any questions or comments or debate? I know we need to take I guess I want to make sure we get public input if there is any, and have any debate amongst ourselves or discussion amongst ourselves about split versus single tax rate. Anything from the board on
I just.
Feelings on that?
I
Yep.
just think that we should continue with what we've been doing, which is a single tax rate. A split tax rate, just, as you said, none of the communities, our surrounding communities have a split tax rate. Chelmsford did at one point, they got rid of it and then went back to a single tax rate, so, we talk about economic development here and what we can do to enhance economic development and commercial and industrial development here in Westford, and having a split tax rate is not going to foster that kind of development. So it would be my opinion that we continue with our single tax rate.
I don't see any comments from the public online.
Okay. I don't see any here, so unless there's any other opinions people would like to share on this, I'll entertain a motion to, I guess the motion would either be to pursue a single tax rate or a split tax rate.
I'll move to pursue a single tax rate.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very
Was
much.
there a second?
Yes.
There was a second, yeah. Will, anything else you need from us in this hearing?
Nope. That's it. So the technical part of it is I'm putting in, you're choosing a residential factor of 1, which is a single rate, so it means the same thing. So
Okay.
that's it. That's all we need to do
Thanks,
then.
thanks for clarifying.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Make one other comment?
Yes, please.
I noticed that you have a vacancy on the Board of Assessors, so I would encourage anyone who is interested to fill out a citizens' activity form. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Okay, next up is our 725 item, which is to review the planning board's actions on a potential firearm zoning bylaw amendment and discuss next steps. I'll just remind people in the public that this is not a hearing to discuss any of the content related to what's in that. That hearing will come, and we'll talk about the timeline here as well. It's really just to review what has been going on the planning board side. And I think Jeff provided us a summary.
Yes. And we have Chief Chambers here as well if necessary. So the planning board met on Monday, November 6th to review their next actions related to a potential firearm zoning bylaw. They have come to consensus that they would like to bring forward a new proposal that would be largely based upon the prior version considered at the October 16th special town meeting, but there would be several significant changes. What they've come to consensus upon at their meeting, and again, this is not a public hearing, was that the version that they would like to bring forward would not include a limitation on the number of special permits that may be issued for a firearms business. They would like to support a 500-foot buffer zone between firearms businesses, which is consistent with the chief's request, and a 1,000-foot buffer zone between firearms businesses and schools. Other buffers that were previously suggested should be removed from this potential bylaw. And to mitigate concerns about the 2 existing sportsman clubs, the proposal would eliminate firing ranges from the definition of firearms businesses. Given that many commercial firing ranges seem to rent firearms or sell ammunition to their customers, such businesses would still qualify as firearms businesses, whereas clubs not selling ammunition and not renting firearms would not. So in closing, the planning board still had several questions for town council, and those are currently being sought. So they have not yet called for a public hearing. They want to make sure that they get their answers from town council because the public hearing notice does need to be specific in a certain fashion moving forward. So wanted to present that matter for you this evening. I don't know, Chief, if you had anything you wanted to add related to that.
No, it was actually a very concise summary. I felt like Jeff was here. So I do know that one of the questions that they had sent to legal was, I believe that there was a conversation around a 1,000-foot buffer for the schools being a federal guideline at this point, and they were looking for clarification on that. And then some additional language around the special permit requirement for to have security measures approved by the police department. More clarification on that as well. So.
Any questions from the board about what the planning board's position is and where they are, or any questions from the chief or the chief? Chris?
Yeah, so Chief, as it stands today in the form that it's in, are you in support of it? Are you feeling comfortable with what's being proposed at this stage?
So I am in support of the bylaw, at least my understanding of what the planning board wants to bring forward. It is very consistent with what my original request was. when we started this process back in December, January of last year when Mr. Steinbrecher first came into the community. So it does include everything that I had originally requested to address my public safety concerns.
Great, thank you.
So, for members of the public from here, so once they've clarified the language, we expect the planning board to post the public hearing. That basically sets, once the public hearing is set, what's in the draft bylaw language, which I guess we'll also be able to see at that point, would be on the record. So if anyone applied for a new license, if this successfully passes, the rule would apply retroactively. So it's sort of an important line in the sand. And people who would like to participate will be able to attend the public hearing process that the planning board will administer.
Correct.
And our engagement in this whole issue will be, basically when it proceeds through that course, at some point we will establish whether, if it does move forward, we'll establish what sort of meeting it goes to, whether we call a special town meeting or whether we schedule it with an existing town meeting. And we'll ultimately have a chance as a board to take a recommendation position on it in advance of whatever public town meeting it appears
Right.
on.
And
Okay.
you would have the chance to decide if you wanted to co-sponsor with the planning board, as you did in the past, or if you just want to let it be and let the planning board move through with the warrant process.
Okay. Scott, do you have a question?
My question was on the timing of, would it be at springtime meeting or a special town meeting, which to be determined, so that's all.
Right. We are, as I believe I mentioned at the last meeting, we're advocating for it to be at a special town meeting rather than the annual, because the annual does have your budget and has the MBTA community zoning, so there's quite a hefty, but that's ultimately your board's decision as you set the warrant.
And also, I know that the town moderator is thinking about potential attendance handling and the benefits of having the meeting outside, which would mean you'd be doing it a little bit later. So, all in capable hands in terms of thinking, and those recommendations will come to us for our decision. Okay. Any other questions on that? All we're trying to do tonight is establish this. We'll see the language and the public hearing notice, and probably we should do at some point after that is add an agenda item to decide if we want to be co-sponsors or if we want to have the process run its typical course. So we'll get that on the agenda in the future. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item up is presentation of the existing facility programming study, and we welcome Jennifer Claro. Hi, Jennifer. Also, Jeff Goodwin, our facilities director, and I don't know if Chris Logan is here or if he's going to be.
He's on the Zoom. I'm looking to
He is,
promote
okay.
him right now.
Welcome to Chris.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and select board members, Kristen and Patty. And we also, and Jeff, our facilities director, and also we have two COA board members that are here with us, that are here tonight. Nancy Cook, who's our COA chair, and Terry Stater, also a COA board member. So probably many months ago, the select board had approved that ARPA funds be used to do a programming study of the Cameron Senior Center, just because we've had some challenges with some space issues and other safety concerns. And I think we're at a point now where we have ARPA funds that were designated for the HVAC project, and that has kind of taken a different turn. So we're here tonight to see if you would consider using some of the ARPA funds to do some improvements at the Cameron that would provide some better safety measures, as well as some additional storage which is needed with just our continued activities and potential growth. So I know that Chris Logan is with us tonight. He did the programmatic study and just wanted to see if he could present that information to you, so you understood what the ARPA funds provided in this study. So Chris, are you here?
Yes, I'm here on virtually. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And everyone can hear me well?
Yes.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, Chairman and board members. Context was brought in to meet with Jennifer and many members of the Cameron Center last fall to late summer to tour the existing facility and to listen to members who were there, staff members as well as board members, attend a Council on Aging board meeting, and to make an assessment of how the existing programs are working within the existing Cameron Center. So over the course of that month, I spent a few days just meeting with Jennifer, a whole day at the Cameron Center, observing programming and meeting with all the staff members, interviewing them, hearing how the daily operations work there. Then later I met with board members in the same day to listen to their assessment of the center and the various programs that are offered. And then I came and presented a preliminary report to the Council on Aging Board. From that report, another tour of the center took place to look specifically at areas that could be improved within the footprint of the building. And from that, I put together a report of my findings, as well as backed it up with all documentation of all the interviews that took place over the course of the month. So the great news is the Cameron Center is really well attended. It's a very happy place. There's a lot of enthusiasm for programming. I was really pleased to see that many of the programs are over-enrolled, which means there is a waiting list, but it shows that there's real need for some expansion within the building that would help accommodate the future growth in programming at the center. What I did notice, though, was that the staff as well as the members are operating in a building which at times is incredibly busy with activities. Some of them intersect with one another. So for instance, if you've been there, you'll notice that when you come into the main lobby of the building, it's very busy, not only because it's a place where you check in, but it's also a place where people wait for the Council on Aging buses to come by during inclement weather, or they're also trying to sign up for classes that are there, or signing up for the food pantry on the days that it's offered. So the main entry is very congested at times, which means that the Cameron Center doesn't always document the number of people who are coming to classes, because it's difficult to navigate your way to the kiosk that has the sign-in or scan-in, and which means that the numbers of people who are attending the classes sometimes are skewed. The other thing that I noticed is that the staff is very adept at accommodating the various work areas within their administrative offices. They share a bunch of common desks. There's a lot of communication among the various members there, and because of that, acoustics is a little bit of an issue within the office. If you're focused on something, it's a little difficult to find a quiet place to work. And because of the openness of the first floor, the openness of the stair to the second floor, you can actually hear a lot of the programming taking place. So for instance, when the band is practicing on the second floor, everybody gets to enjoy the band practicing on the second floor, which isn't a huge issue, but it would be nice to be able to isolate some of that acoustically, especially during the working hours when the staff is meeting with members to discuss issues or provide different services. The Cameron Center is a huge resource for people who are looking for services offered by the town or offered by the surrounding towns. The other element that I noticed would radically improve some of the use of the existing rooms is if there was some added storage. Presently, there really isn't rooms that are large enough to store some of the larger equipment, so the equipment ends up staying in the rooms, thus reducing the actual footprint of the room. So, for instance, when the band doesn't practice, not all the equipment can be packed away and moved across the hall into the arts and crafts room. So it remains in the room itself, which means the next activity that's in that room, and that room is selected because it's larger than some of the others, actually has a much smaller area to work in. And it also means that members are having to navigate around some of the larger equipment. The same is true in the main meeting room on the main level. That room they have to push all the tables and chairs off into the corner because there really isn't a room to store them in. Thus, it reduces the amount of space for some of the fitness classes and other large classes that are held in there. So the challenge would be, how do we create additional storage without reducing the sizes of any of these rooms? And we looked at that closely, found out that there are some underused areas in the building, one of which is there are a number of existing staircases. One has been closed off already. There are new means of egress, so some of the stairs aren't needed. And so we made a proposal that we could take one stair offline and make it into a storage closet on the first floor and make it into a much larger storage closet on the second floor. Now, that would change the character of the inside of the space, so we also looked at the ways we could create more storage on the second floor and keep that existing stair, and that is possible. And in fact, by doing so, we end up with making a much larger storage room that would be contiguous to the room where the band practices, and you might be able to open up that room to the band room and be able to store some of the band equipment, as well as the ping pong tables, which are presently sometimes stored in that room as well. We know that down the road, the food pantry will be moving out of the Cameron Center. I think it's in the next 1.5 to 2 years. That's going to actually free up a room on the first floor, and that could be utilized by Trudy's Boutique, which is the resale shop on the second floor. Moving to the first floor would make it more accessible to people. It would be off the main meeting room, so that's the only downside to it. However, the hours that it's open could be flexible according to the programming. But that would free up the second floor. Then we'd be able to combine Trudy's Boutique with the computer room, which is next door to it, which would make actually quite a large, a third large room on the second floor for additional programming. So we put all of this together into a report. With the main interest is trying to utilize some of the existing layout within the space to make it more conducive. Part of it is looking at storage areas. Another part of it is looking at reconfiguring the admin offices to make the flow a little better, to create some more acoustical privacy. And we have some pretty good ideas of how that could happen, as well as making a small little meeting room that could be used by staff members if they don't use a larger conference room that's also in their suite, which is a multi-use room as well. And then lastly, we looked at safety features. And these plans that you now can see in front of you is sort of marking up the existing footprint of the building and showing what areas where we could make some of those changes. You can see the middle of the first floor plan, which is on your left. There's a bunch of boxes, a bunch of arrows. That's the existing admin area. So that houses a number of people. And by expanding it a little bit towards the existing stair, which is taking up a little bit of the hallway, but still making the hallway fully accessible, we were able to create a second meeting room and create 2 separate offices for the director as well as for the record supervisors, so to have their own private offices without having to walk through one to get to the other. And it would also create keep the traffic office, which is a well-needed and well-used office, and give some additional storage for the traffic office, which is also needed. And it would mean that it would free up some of the congestion in the open office, which is the room you see when you enter the lobby area. So you'd be able to conduct some activities in a quieter space, but still be able to be part of the activities in the admin suite. The lower part of that plan, of the floor plan, you'll see in a rectangular box down by a staircase, an area that says combined food pantry storage with multi-purpose room storage. So that is the area that the food pantry presently uses for its for the items that are regularly put out when they have food pantry shopping days. The rest of the food pantry overstock is down in the basement. So once the food pantry leaves the building, that can be opened up into one large room, which could become either Trudy's Boutique, or it could become a large storage room for the multi-purpose room, which means that the tables and chairs, which now take up probably 25% of the multi-purpose room, could be stacked together and housed in that room, thus making the multi-purpose room much more usable for larger groups. And part of that is the fact that the fitness classes that are there, each person requires a certain square footage of space so they're not running into the next, and that's really a safety issue. So right now the classes are limited by this reduced size room, and therefore there's a wait list for most of those classes. Getting back to my discussion of safety, one thing I did notice when I was there, and I've been to the Cameron Center a number of times for other meetings that are held in the evening, and some of them have been in the winter months, and the walkways are not covered. The main entrance path to the main entrance is not covered, and the roof's pitched towards those walkways. So presently, all of the accessible parking is up against those walkways as you drive into the building. That's also where the Council on Aging van pulls up to pick up people. Our recommendation would be, if there is available funds, to put a permanent canopy over the walkway from the, it's called the lounge area, all the way to the new entrance, and then along the accessible sidewalk to the new entrance. And that at least would provide a little bit of covering, would reduce the amount of snow removal that's needed right at the entry. And even in the summer months, it would provide a shaded area where you could wait for the Council on Aging van opposed to waiting in the lobby of the Cameron Center. So that would help some of the safety concerns that are presently there. Another feature that might really, I know it would benefit the users of the building, but I think it would also be very good for a safety perspective, is presently the new staircase in the back of the building, which is where the multipurpose room is the stair that leads you down to the basement. That's really the only safe entrance to the basement of this building due to head heights at the old stair that goes down to the basement. But that is also the way that right now overstock food pantry items are brought up and down. It's where donations that are given to the Cameron Center are brought downstairs. That could be medical items that are then refurbished and then made available to residents of Westford, or presently the Overstock, which means boutique. So the staff have to transport all these items down a 2-flight stair. Some of the boxes are heavy, so they've rigged up like a 2x10 that they lay flat on each run, and they walk the boxes down or walk the boxes up. And that's not really the safest of things, ways of transporting. There have been incidents where things have got loose and hit the walls, and fortunately, people, I guess, have not been hurt. But the thought would be to put in a power lift alongside that stair within the footprint of the building that would allow one to transport items up and down without having to carry them or push them up and down the staircase. I think that would be a great benefit. And that basement is large enough to really be used and is needed. I can't think of any other place in the building where you'd be able to store as many items as you presently store in the basement without really affecting the operations of the senior center. On the upper floors, the next plan up, right-hand side is the second floor of the building. Earlier I spoke about creating a new storage closet off of the activity room, which the band and the ping pong users play in. And that, if we keep that existing stair as a stair, we are able to build out into the hallway to expand that storage room and open up a double door into the activity room, which would allow the ping pong tables to be stored there when they're not in use, or allow some of the band equipment to be stored in that room when it's not in use, thus opening up the entire room to the activities, opposed to In fact, now where it's reduced by storage of items. There is an existing stair off the second floor lobby that has been taken out of commission because that's above the entrance to the building now. But half the staircase is there. It brings you down to the old landing. And that's one of the storage closets on that level. So you have to open the door and walk down the stairs to the landing to store things and then come back up the stairs. You easily could frame a new floor in that closet, and thus it would become a regular walk-in closet. You could utilize the passage in with shelving, and then more shelving at the old the raised landing location. Lower right-hand side of the page are the two rooms. The top room is the computer room. The lower room is Trudy's Boutique. If Trudy's Boutique moves downstairs, those two rooms can be combined, thus making it another large activity room, which could easily be used, could actually become the ping pong room that's deep enough to be able to accommodate that. And then lastly, there is a nice porch on the back of the building, which is actually the passage to the stair to get out of the building. So you go out of the building on the second floor, go across the porch, and then into the stair, and then out of the building. That could be reconfigured into a small meeting room, winterized, and there could be a passage from the alongside the fitness room into that staircase, so you still would have a second means of egress from the second floor at that backside of the building. But it would at least give you one small meeting room, which actually I'm sure would be used quite a bit already. It's difficult to find spaces to have meetings or small meetings. And if you do find a space, you're probably only using a piece of one of the rooms, part of one of the rooms, and therefore that the rest room can't be used for an activity. Presently, the library on the second floor is used for a lot of meetings, small meetings, medium-sized meetings. They could easily meet in this back room if that were to become a meeting room. So we looked at all of these, discussed this with the Council on Aging Board, and it was reviewed by the town manager as well. And we were asked to summarize it, which we did, and then to try to estimate what the construction cost might be. So we used the cost estimator that we use on all of our projects. I sent him the plans, and we developed some square footage pricing for this, albeit it's difficult in a building such as this because you're doing a lot of work in a lot of different areas. And in some areas you're doing a small amount, other areas a little large amount. So it's difficult to sort of put a cost per square foot on it, but we managed to come up with some ranges. And I discussed with Jennifer the thought that maybe some of the work could be done in association with the tech school that was done when I was working on the dispatch center. The tech school helped the police department build out the old communication room into a conference room, and some of the work to enlarge the storage areas in here or to combine two rooms really has minimal construction impact, and I think could be done that way. So we looked at phasing the work, and we looked at pricing the different elements, and we came up with a sort of a three-phase plan based upon the real needs. And we prioritized, safety and expansion of storage, because that would be the biggest impact in making the rooms more usable. Safety being adding awnings over the sidewalks, alongside the accessible space, as well as alongside that the lounge area, adding a lift to the basement, and expansion of storage on the second floor. So that would be phase one. Phase two would be based on the premise of the food pantry moving out to relocate Trudy's Boutique and then combine the space where it is now with the adjacent computer room to create one large room on the second floor. And then phase Phase 3 would be enclosing of the rear porch and providing a new internal access to the exit stairs. I forgot to mention Phase 1. Phase 1 also includes remodeling the administrative offices to create a new conference room and private offices for records and for Jennifer. So looking at the pricing, we sort of worked out some ranges for the work and estimated pricing for the admin and traffic office on the first floor is coming out to be roughly $230,000. Expansion of the multi-purpose room storage, which is the Trudy's, the food pantry opening up to the storage room, that would be maybe about $15,000. Expansion of the second floor storage and converting the former stair to a storage room is at maybe about $15,000. Combining the second floor activity rooms, that's about $17,000. Converting the porch is a pricier element. That's why it's in Phase 3, because that really involves the exterior envelope from the building and running some heating over to it, obviously new windows, and creating a passage to the stair. So that's about $72,000 to do that. Adding a power lift from the base of the first floor, most of that money is in the lift itself, but that's about an $80,000, estimated $80,000 add. And then adding permanent canopies at the exterior is about a $17,000 add.
How
So
much?
these are
Is that 17 or
Wait,
70?
17 or 70?
17.
17.
17, yeah. These numbers are looking at commencing the work in 2024, which may or may not be reasonable. It's also looking at using the Neshoba Valley Technical High School as a resource to helping out with some of this work, whether it be some of the demolition or some of the finish work or just painting and doing cleanup, but using their students to help assist with the pricing of this project.
Okay.
Thank you. Just before you go on, I just want to make sure Jeff is also here because there are some upgrades that we were just talking about that are not in Chris's scope, such as renovation of bathroom and other things that were accommodated. So Jeff, would you quickly just go through that before we open it up to the board? I just want to make sure it's all comprehensive before we get started.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I have met with Jennifer and Terry last week. We discussed the results of the context report. And we have found that there are some initiatives listed in the report that we'd like to try and pursue. As on top of that, there's some other initiatives in-house that have been identified, and some were actually to be included in the HVAC project. And one of which Kristen just touched upon is the renovation of the second floor bathroom. It's a small 30 square foot bathroom that did not get renovated back in 2010 and has been offline since. Jennifer had recommended the addition of potentially a cubicle office for her program coordinator in the main entry area, as well as a new reception desk. And as I mentioned the last time I was here at the select board, I'm still working to figure out how to effectively solve some of the HVAC issues for which the project originated. And I've been working with HVAC contractors to figure out what is a good fit for the rooms that require the HVAC attention.
Okay, I guess first up, questions from the board about any of this material, and then I guess is what we're being asked to consider tonight just awareness that this work is done and what the cost is, or is there some additional?
If there's any concerns about the work, I think we want to move forward as quickly as possible with some of the work, because I believe the state ARPA funds run out at a certain period of time, and you've also allocated local ARPA funds, so we want to
So
talk about that.
can I, how much did we allocate to the HVA system, that HVAC that we would now be reallocating for this project? I guess is the first question, is how much money do we have? And
Dan, do you want to?
Dan, can you answer that?
I need to look it up, so I need a couple minutes.
Okay.
Just, and we haven't discussed this as a board, but given the budget challenges that we're facing, something that we had thought about discussing with you is, do we want to hold off on reserving, not making any new allocations out of the ARPA funding right now until we understand how things are looking for the budget? Just because I can imagine a situation where we're going to wish, for instance, we're pursuing two different budgets. If we find that we have to live within the Prop 2.5 and face all those cuts, I think we may wish that we had the flexibility of knowing that we had some funds to apply, and might wish that we hadn't allocated them already. But let me just put that out there. So, Dan, when you're ready, please let us know. And let me understand the state ARPA funding. So this is not under our discretion. This has been allocated by the state. How much money is that?
Jeff, do you have that number?
State ARPA funding was 300,000.
Okay, so it's 300,000 that's been allocated to the state sort of for this purpose that we need to use, basically.
Yes.
And we don't have any authority to do anything differently with it.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, that's helpful.
We got just the 300 for the HVAC? Is that what the ARPA funds from the state were for?
That was its original intent, was to apply it towards the HVAC.
But we did get approval from the state that we can use it for other purposes at the center to upgrade the building outside of HVAC.
Okay,
Okay,
all
so-
right, all right.
That's very
So
helpful.
that's, if that's targeted and it's that amount, then maybe I think we should use it for that, especially if it's gonna run out.
Yeah,
Because by the time we make the budget decisions, that may run out. I think it was
Yeah.
December, is it December of this year that runs out?
No, December of 24
2024
is our ARPA, and then I think the state ARPA, we got an extension to June 30th, if I recall correctly.
yeah, if it wasn't clear, there was no discussion about trying to withhold or repurpose the state money. That money's
Yeah.
already been allocated and assigned, so presumably we would proceed with that. Because we can't do anything else with it anyway. Yeah, Scott?
Two questions. So first, I guess maybe it's for Jeff, but the awning, when we talk about an awning, that's going to be, I presume, a permanent hard roof, right? Because it still comes off the center, so you want to have something that's not a canopy, right? So 17K will buy us something that's really rigid?
So I think it's very important that when we talk about and look at these numbers that are in the context report, these are budget estimate numbers. They're not based on any construction design or conceptual design at this point. So it remains to be seen what the actual design of any proposed canopy would look like. So these are budget estimates at this point.
It seems to me, if we're about safety, it can't be a cloth canopy, or else, so
Correct.
it has to be rigid. Okay.
Correct.
I guess, so the second question was, is that back porch historic? I mean, is it even an option to take it off and replace it with storage space?
I think that, with money and time, anything's possible. Whether or not it makes sense to do so for how much square footage we'd be buying with that project. As Chris mentioned, the back porch presents challenges where, now we're turning a porch into a heated, conditioned space that would have to have sprinkler added to it. So there are a lot of mechanical additions that would have to happen in order to bring that porch in.
One thing is, it's historic, part of the building, so is that actually historic as in we can't touch historic, or just old?
No, I don't believe the back porch is historic. That was part of the addition. Yep.
Okay. And the last question, which is what really worries me, is we had a problem with the HVAC, which hasn't gone away. So if we allocate this money to these other things, we still got a problem with HVAC, right? So,
That's correct.
I guess the general question I have is, if you were going to prioritize, so there is $300,000 that we're going to apply to this, there might be more, and we'll talk about that. We might decide it should go through the capital planning process to fairly compete with all the other needs that we have in the town. Do you have like a clear sense of how you'd prioritize that first earmarked $300,000
Yes.
amongst all these things?
Yes.
That was my question.
And
Yeah, priority.
Well, so to Scott's point, are you going to reserve it for the HVAC stuff, which we consider to be critical, or you've got some other set of uses you would apply it to first?
I think that we have some uses in this report that we could apply it to, but also, our intent is to continue to address the HVAC.
So if you spent the 300 on this other stuff and there was not additional funding because of budgetary constraints, you'd rather live with the existing HVAC and get some of these things done than hold and wait? Or, I guess I'm trying to understand, Jeff, how you...
I don't.
Can I rephrase?
Yeah, please, yeah.
With the $300,000 that you have right now, okay, what would your priorities be? The Council on Aging or Jennifer, the Senior Center, what are your priorities in terms of fixing first, 1 through 10, using this money that you have? I mean, what's the most important thing for you to do with this money right now?
Would you like to speak to that from the Council of Aging perspective?
Yeah, I can see, I think we're on the same page, but if I'm not, you chime in.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely, we would like to, we've come up with some alternatives for the air conditioning, which is, the heat is working. We're, it needs, we're still having trying to figure some things out with the heat, but with the air conditioners, we were looking at, doing the split units.
Yes, we're entertaining the thought of installing mini splits in some of the rooms, and
Okay, I get that. I don't, what I want to know is you have a list of like 15 things here between the context report and what you're telling me. How do you order them? What do you want to do first, and then going down the list?
And if that's something you need a little bit more time on, I guess that the question is, if we're going to approve something, we kind of have to approve your boiled down ranked that
Okay.
adds to 300. So
All
we
right.
need that sheet of paper so we can say we're approving that. We can't sort of prove a concept or some exploration or, so if we don't have that tonight, that's fine. We could certainly bring it back to another meeting.
We've requested that, we just needed more time.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
That's
great.
fine. I just want to know, is the air conditioning your priority? Is the roof your priority? Are the storage areas your priority?
Those three are very, very
Oh,
critical.
So,
Yeah.
but,
But
but
right now, we
yeah.
just don't know the total cost
Okay.
of
So-
each of those
so
projects.
I think that what we're asking for is a we're not gonna know an estimated cost. We're gonna have to pursue some of these projects. We'll need an actual design of what the canopy would look like outside. And some of that is gonna require some design or engineering funds. So what we're asking for is a recommendation tonight or approval to move forward with looking at these recommended projects from the list.
but again, I guess
Like, how much would that cost? I don't.
maybe we're talking in circles here, but if the canopy is one of your top 3 priorities, then I'm fine in saying, yes, spend, if you have to spend some design fund, some funds for design, that's fine. But if, just say that wasn't your top priority and that was like number 10, then I wouldn't be sitting here saying, well, then go spend the funds for the design if that's not your top priority. So while I understand that you need cost estimates, but I think you need to determine what your priorities are and then go out and get the cost estimates for those priorities and then come back.
Right, so there was a number of priorities in the HVAC project. There was HVAC, there was the bathroom, there was some other upgrades, so that's part of the list. And then these items that Mr. Logan presented are additions to the list. So you're looking for them to come back with the prioritization with the potential costs, line item 300,000, what are we spending with the first chunk?
I think
But also, I mean, the HVAC cost to do what you're looking at now is not the HVAC cost that we bid out.
Correct,
So
right. Correct.
we gotta fix that first.
Correct.
And then, is the bathroom on Chris's list, or is it before Chris's list? I mean,
You need to merge
So-
the two and figure out where.
So
where
I think we're all in violent agreement, so.
I think
Why
we
don't
are.
propose, and I did see your hand, John, so I'll come back to you, but why don't we propose that, if you can come back with your proposal of what, to your first order of estimate, you think is $300,000, the most important things to do, then we can talk about that with you and greenlight that. In that meeting, we'll also review what the local, our jurisdiction ARPA money was, just so we've got that in our
Do
heads.
you have that dollar amount?
We can do that next time, Dan, if you don't have it.
Still trying to
I'm
find
trying to
the
move on
account
to
for-
the next, yeah.
Yeah, the
So wh-
300K, but.
So why don't we wrap this, unless, John, why don't you go ahead and then we're moving towards wrapping
I was just
this.
gonna ask Chris, does your estimates include design? Is that total cost, or is that just construction cost?
It's estimated construction cost only.
So we've got design on top of that, that's gonna be another $100,000. I mean, that's a total of 446 or something like that he's got. And the priorities, and safety is a concern of mine, that canopy out there and safety for the senior.
Nancy?
Nancy Cook, Chair of the Council on Aging. Could we move forward our biggest concern was the arch outside to put the covering out on the walk. Can we proceed with getting some design costs for that while we work on the rest of the priorities? I mean, obviously, the air conditioning and the bathroom are tops for us. The others, can we proceed with getting some design costs for the,
I would propose, and would like to get the comment from the board, if in all universes that this brain trust can think of, that would always be in the top priority,
right?
then I'd suggest it would make sense to go ahead and explore that, because snow's coming.
Yeah, the snow's coming, so
So
we would like to
is
move
the board
forward.
comfortable
I
with
have
that?
no problem with that, and that sounds to me anyway
Okay.
that that should be one of the top
Right,
priorities.
it
that
is our
people
top
Need to
priority.
be able to get in and out of the building safely.
Okay. So why don't we agree to further explore that, and then we'll look at the full 300 in a future meeting.
So what are
Thank you very much, by the way, and thank you, Chris, for sharing it. Sounds like a lot of useful ways to make best use of that space, so grateful for the update and the information.
What are we approving here for them to use? How much money are we approving for them to go spend on a design or to get, do whatever the next step is they
Well,
want to
they
do?
have their state ARPA money,
So
and I
what-
don't
do
think.
they
that-
need our approval for them to
I don't believe
use
they
it?
need your
Okay.
approval for that. And just want to note, you have $500,000 that you set aside in fiscal '22 for the Cameron Senior Center HVAC system.
Right, and I guess I would consider that since the whole situation has changed, that's worthy of a reconsideration.
Yeah.
So, we, just to make it clear, we wouldn't automatically roll it over, given the change in the universe since then. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Much appreciated.
Have a good night.
Thank you, thanks, Chris. Always good to see you. 8 o'clock item, update from the Communications Advisory Committee on public hearing.
So Mike Wells is on the Zoom. I do not see Bob Jeffries. So Mike,
Hi, Mike.
it's all you.
Oh, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so really tonight what we really wanted to do was come forward and let you know that as per the last meeting we had with you, we have chosen December the 13th as the proposed date for the public hearing on the cable TV contracts. And we wanted to know to what extent the select board wanted to be involved in that meeting. I've reserved the school committee meeting room, since I think there's another meeting going on in town hall that evening, and we wanted to give WestfordCAT the chance to cover it if they wanted to. So.
Sounds like a good choice. I know we certainly would want to be, thank you for inviting us and letting us know when and where it is, so I think we'd at least want that. I don't know if there's any other feeling amongst the board about ways to participate besides being enthusiastic attendees. Will it also be online as well, Mike?
We can do, yes. I mean, we haven't really decided that yet. There is an owl obviously in that location if we wanted to do that.
If it's easy to do, I think I'm going to be out of town that week, so I would be able to join that way. But obviously no need to set it up for one person, but it might be nice. More accessibility is good if it's not too hard to do.
Yeah, sure, okay.
It's
You're suggesting we just go ahead and run it as the Communications Advisory Committee meeting, hold the hearing then, and if the select board are in attendance, then you're in attendance. But that's.
I think that's exactly what I was thinking, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, it's December. It's the chance for bad weather. People might want to be home on Zoom if they can be. So make it a
Hybrid. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. 8:10 is review of fiscal '25 budget process. And Kristen, I think you just want to give kind of an overview and sort of a check-in on all the hard work that's been going on, both here and at the schools.
Yep. And Dan, if you want to come up, feel free. So wanted to give the board and the public an overview of where we are related to the fiscal '25 budget. There is a memo in your packet from me dated November 9th that runs through various matters. So high level, the departments were asked to submit their fiscal '25 budget in August of this year. That was early because we knew the work of the budget task force going on, and we knew that we'd have the constraints for fiscal '25, so wanted a head start to understand what those budgets were coming in as. Wanted to point out that the departments were very conservative this year in submitting their budgets. They understand the fiscal constraints that we are having. We've been talking about it since May with them. I believe that there might have been one new position asked for. I think in the past there's been much more than that. The level of software or other equipment or services was certainly very much pared down. So in the past, the budget presentation that you receive in December, the cuts perhaps were more substantial in like the $1 million range from the budgets that were submitted by departments. You'll see a lesser cut this year just because those departments were much more cognizant in their preparations and their submittal. We also have received an initial budget from the school department as well. So after those budgets were received, Dan O'Donnell and I met with each of the department heads on the town side to go over those requests and discuss the nuances related to them. And then in subsequent times, Dan and I have gone through the budget and created two columns, I'll just call it. One is a level service column. So within the constraints that we're seeing with all of the increases related to solid waste and recycling, health insurance, energy, school bus contracts, special education fleet, special education tuition, and I'm sure there's a few others that we highlighted in the budget task force report. So we have made some very hard decisions right now. We're still working through those, and we'll be presenting those to the departments for them to react to. We're also creating a second budget per your direction related to a potential override. That second budget takes into account the budgets we received in August, but cuts those again. We want to make sure that we're reviewing those budgets. We're not, using funds willy-nilly. We have made some cuts related to that. So I anticipate on December 12th, when I present the budget to you, I will present the balanced budget, which will have substantial cuts to it because of these increased costs that we cannot remedy because they are associated with inflation and new contracts. And then we will have a presentation related to a budget that would require Proposition 2.5 override at that point in time. The departments, again, are all well aware of this. We had a special department head meeting last week to go over this with everyone to understand where we're at. We asked departments to be creative and come back to us related to any areas that they felt that they could live with. I know that it's a very difficult time for departments to even think of these types of cuts, and when it means employees or services. It's also important to let the public know that this is occurring. So we're working on some campaigns of how to get this information out to the public. The Budget Task Force is preparing a series of videos related to the Budget Task Force report and then steps moving forward. So we hope to air those on WestfordCAT and bring those to the public's view. We're also going to be coordinating more closely with the school department and the school committee. The school committee will be reviewing the school's budget on December 6th and December 20th, and they would like to formally invite the select board to those meetings as well as the finance committee. So you can really see the details that you normally see in the budget presentation by the town manager on the town side, as well as those public hearings that occur in January and early February. I can certainly go into some of the areas that we're seeing for larger cuts if the board wishes. It's in the memo this evening. I know when I was speaking with Chairman Clay, we were going to talk about, trade-offs. If we cut this, then we can keep this. It's not looking like that's really going to be possible based upon the cuts that are required. But if any board members have strong desires that we absolutely 100% need to keep this, Kristen, you need to find a cut in another area, I'd be happy to entertain that this evening, as we're going to be working diligently over the next 3 weeks to finalize that budget presentation to you for December 12th. And also we're working with the capital committee on those recommendations related to the capital funding.
But why don't we pause here and see if there are questions from the board? There's a little bit of a danger that if we dig too deep, it's going to turn into the budget presentation, which we're still working on and aren't going to have ready for you until the 12th. But just from what you've seen in Kristen's memo, which is in everyone's packet, everyone can see it if you want to look on the online meeting packet. Any questions either about the process that we're going through, visibility into what's happening, or specific questions? Yep, John.
Well, my question is not police and fire. You talk about reduced patrol coverage and delayed response. What generates that? What what are you looking at that says that they may have to happen? Can you, I guess I'm concerned about, I guess the question is, I see that that's a concern, but what's driving that? What kind of numbers are we looking at? I mean, not really.
Right, so I think we want to wait and carefully have vetted everything, so no one's hearing for the first time in this meeting something that we want to make sure that the staff can hear. So, short answer is there's not a way to do this without substantial headcount reduction. And that triggers a whole cascade of other things. But why don't we, if it's okay, John, why don't we hold off? Because I think when you get these two budgets, you're going to see those kind of specifics. The only way we can make this
The answer I
work.
was looking for is reductions in personnel, what you're talking about.
It's substantial. It's substantial because this amount of money is a lot. And that's the reason why we felt that, like, the public needed to have the choice of this other override-based budget that would preserve more services, because I think when people see the stark reality, nobody, I don't think, I'll speak for myself, I would not be comfortable with the kind of cuts that would need to happen in that under the Prop 2.5 cliff plan.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for now about kind of where we are in the budget process? Any questions from the public? Okay. Well, thanks, Kristen, for the update, and thanks for preparing the memo. And
If anybody
very
has any
soon,
feedback,
it will be
I'll
all budget all the time, Westford, so get ready. Next up, we are going to talk about, let's see, old new business. First up is review and act and select board meeting schedule for the rest of 2023.
Sure. So the board has 3 additional meetings scheduled for 2023, November 28th, Tuesday evening, December 12th, Tuesday evening, and December 26th. With December 26th being the day after Christmas, I just wanted to get a sense of the board. It does not matter to me either way. I am here in town. If you wanted to keep that meeting, reschedule, just use the 12th and see where we need to go. And if you need to the 28th to make that decision, you can certainly do that. Just wanted to bring that up to you this evening.
I'm trying to recall what we've done in the past. Did we schedule it but then reserve the right to not have it? Is that what we did?
Yeah.
Left it on the schedule, but
We
5
both-
days earlier said,
we-
if we don't have the agenda items, we're going to not have it?
Yeah, I think that's what we've done, or we've kind of moved meetings
We
around.
should push it back a week and
We
get one
pushed it, yeah.
in the midpoint.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that we've done is to have one meeting in December and, like you said, Scott, do it like at the midpoint.
Does the board have a preference?
So we're meeting the 20, I mean,
What would the
28th
date
would
be
look good.
if we, excuse me, if we pushed it back 1 week?
So I think I'm required to present the budget to you on the 12th. The next date is December 19th. December 5th is the week after the 28th.
Okay, so we have a meeting that's a date certain on the 12th.
12th, yes, that is correct.
Okay. I guess what I would suggest is that we leave the 26th on the books then.
Yep.
And then we'll make the call. I'll
the
talk to
12th.
Kristen, we'll make the call maybe a week out if we think that there's not a heavy enough agenda, and we'll just,
or even if there are a few things that we can do before the Christmas holiday, like the following week, the 19th or something,
Okay.
we could do it then too.
okay. Well, why don't we stay a little bit flexible then? So we may have a meeting to handle important items on the 19th, we may decide to do it on the 26th, we may decide that there's not that need. So let's let the schedule as it currently sits remain.
Sure. And then your first meeting in January would be January 9th,
Okay.
just for visibility.
Thank you for that. Review letter, next up, review letter from Smollett and Vaughn regarding the agricultural preservation restriction. So basically, the respondent, through their attorney, said that they didn't think they needed to respond. Our attorney has prepared a letter that says, actually, we do think you need to respond and would like very much for you to do that. I don't know if that letter was in the packet.
I kept it confidential because it
Okay.
was still a draft from town council, so the board got it as a confidential
I see.
attorney-client privilege document. Just wanted to have a discussion with the board this evening of their desires to move forward.
So one thing we could do is effectively send that letter. It at least seems to me like it's well within the realm of reasonableness. There's a lot of interest in what's going on in that property, so my sense is that we should go ahead and pursue getting the answers we're looking for.
You said you sent the letter to us?
Confidentially,
Yeah.
yes, on
Yes.
Friday.
That's all right.
It came from Pam. There was 3 confidential documents in it. One was related to this project and one was related
It's
to.
essentially a letter just saying, we don't agree, we think you need to respond.
Yeah, we made a decision, and we don't change the decision because someone's lawyer thought we didn't make a good decision. No, it's still our decision, so, yeah.
Okay, is that the
My
consensus
question would
board?
be, what's the next step if they say, come back and say, well, read our first letter?
And we talk about that when
When
that
it happens,
happens.
okay.
Yeah, I think we
Just one
probably,
plan ahead.
yeah, we could, since it's sort of a negotiation strategy issue, we may do that in executive session.
Yeah.
But yes, there would be a next step for us, and
Okay.
we'll have a chance to discuss it before we take it.
Do we need a motion or anything on that?
I mean, the letter originally came from me at the board's direction. You have the letter back. I'm happy to, if you want us to.
I think we're okay without it. It seems like the consensus of the board is to pursue the answers we want. Okay, so let's do that. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi.
Thank you. Ellen Hardy,
Hi,
39
Ellen.
Main Street. Will there be any date in that letter, Tom, for response? As you recall, town meeting's vote last March said that they'd hoped that the plan would be, quote, implemented before the end of this calendar year. And here we are in November. So I wondered if you would ask council to put any letter in that it would be in December, that they would get a response and get some kind of a plan back to this board.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank
So
you.
we'll make sure there's a deadline in the letter. Okay. All right. Thank you all. Next up is continuation of discussion to review Drew Farmhouse, 70 Boston Road. And we welcome Ellen to come back up.
And I'll just give a little bit of context for the board. As you recall, at your last meeting, we were moving through the review of 3 documents related to 70 Boston Road. We were working through a CPA grant agreement in which the town meeting authorized $1.45 million, an affordable housing regulatory agreement for the affordable units, not the HUD units, and then a historic preservation restriction. Over the course of the time between your last meeting that we discussed this, Ms. Hardy's counsel and town council have gone back and forth with some of the documentation. We do have several questions that we want to just clarify with our board tonight, and Katie Klein, our counsel, is online. One related to a mortgage question, and second related to the Phase 1 environmental site assessment. But Chairman Clay, if you want to open it up to the property owner for an update before we go into those.
That'd be great. Please, welcome.
Mr. Chair, for the record, Melissa Robbins from Fairland Robbins. Also with me is Ellen Hardy from the Drew Farmhouse, Inc. Kristen has stated everything properly, and Attorney Klein is on remotely. There wasn't actually a lot of back and forth. We integrated what the direction of the board was from the last meeting. Katie made all of those changes. She sent us back some other red line changes, really a lot of legalese. I know this board hasn't had an opportunity to review that yet, but I can make it easy because I agreed to all of her changes. I had no issues whatsoever with any of her revisions whatsoever, which makes it a lot easier to deal with. I will be asking for one other thing from the board, is that I know this board has to review these for the next meeting, but Attorney Klein and I also have to get these off to EOHLC, formerly DHCD. We're hoping that they will bless this document and also sign off on it. I know I had mentioned earlier that we weren't sure if DHCD, HLC could approve these documents, since this is not an 80% AMI project, but there is an avenue for them to do so. We would like to try to do so. So if the board would just direct council and I to go forward with that approval, and the board can review that in the interim, that would be wonderful. And Mr. Chair, if you want, I'll stop before I make the other 2 requests.
Why don't we do that? Is the board comfortable with the idea? I guess basically what we're doing is, we haven't had a chance to review, but our attorney has.
Yes.
And so what you're suggesting is it go to the regulatory authority for review. We're not losing a right to review, it's just keeping the timeline going.
That's correct, yeah. We will actually send them a draft document as part of this application and cover letter to EOHLC.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I'd say is sooner is better, so
Yeah.
presumably if you can send it to them, you can send it to us. Yeah.
I'm fine with that. 2 minor little things
Oh,
that
sure.
you guys didn't correct.
Okay.
In paragraph 20 of the CPC grant agreement, it says governing law, and you still haven't put in that the governing law is from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
You did clearly make that. I will make sure it makes it in there, yes.
That was the final, that was one, and then in paragraph 22, which is the entire agreement, if you could just put in at the end, it says, and it supersedes all offers, negotiations, and any other written or verbal agreements, if you can just put in supersedes all other previous offers, negotiations, and any, it's just so we're clear that it's an integrated contract.
Happy to, and I can see Attorney Klein is taking notes. She has the lead copy right now, so we'll make sure that those two comments are integrated. Those are easy changes to make and should have been made on this copy.
Other questions from the board or issues from the board? Okay. So if all you'd like to do tonight is make sure we have that update on board.
Oh,
No,
no,
you have two more things.
We
Go
have
ahead.
two more things.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the second item was the mortgage and note. Now, I know we discussed it globally at the last meeting. The board hasn't taken a vote on it, which I think Kristen and council would appreciate if the board took a vote on it. But I also will say that Attorney Klein and I had discussed this earlier today, and she had suggested maybe an interim measure that would give the town some level of protection during construction. I know we had discussed the last meeting that these weren't being used for purchase funds anymore, so a mortgage and note for purchase money wasn't really necessary from the community for protection anymore. But the town is still giving funds. Ms. Hardy and her organization will be using it for a specific purpose, which is historical renovation and affordable housing. So I think what we could do is do an interim mortgage that as soon as we get funds from the town, we will, council and I will work on a mortgage and note, which will be in place from the time we get those funds until we get an occupancy permit. That will make sure that the town is secured, that the funds were actually used for the stated purpose and that it was carried through completion, and then it would be forgiven at the time of completion. You have town council on the line as well, but we have no objection to that as well and would agree to put that on as for protection for the community. And Attorney Klein, if I've missed anything there, go ahead and
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. No, that is my recommendation to the select board. I wasn't at the last meeting, and I understand there was some discussion on this, but this is for a different purpose, and it's limited in duration during the construction. And it sounds like the developer, for lack of a better word, Drew Farmhouse is amenable to that.
yes, we have no objection. We're happy to.
Any reaction from the board? I mean, I think an incremental protection like that's good for the taxpayer. Okay. Looks like we're in consensus. I don't know if you need a vote or want to vote.
I don't think, if it's going to be in the document that you sign,
Okay,
you'll
we'll have a
vote
chance
at
to
that
review
time,
when we
but I
review
think
the
you have
document.
consensus on that.
Okay.
Thank
the
you.
Final item.
Yes.
I promise I'll be brief, is the 21E. So there had been some earlier discussions about a 21E, again, when there was going to be purchase monies used from the community for purchasing this property. After that, I think that the discussion of the 21E kind of went off the table. And then there was some confusion between me and Kristen and town council about what happened with the 21E. I think it's the opinion of the developer at this point that the 21E is absolutely not necessary. I'll let you know that we're getting funds from a third-party institution. They are not requiring any sort of environmental investigation, not a 21E whatsoever. The property is going to stay intact. We're not doing any disturbance of the property. As a matter of fact, the only disturbance we're doing is to take out existing pavement and we're putting it back to a natural status. I did have some conversation with council about the fact that we would be asking the board to take no further action on the 21E, but that's the final item I would need this board to take action on.
Okay. Any questions either for Kristen or for the attorney?
I will just say we did have we did look to a 21E consultant because we were trying to get one on board if the board was going to need one. They did do some preliminary research and found nothing that would require a 21E from a foundation standpoint. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would just like, Katie, are you in agreement with that?
Well, I don't know that I have a particular recommendation. I do think that, given that the third-party lender is not requiring it and that there has been, some work in this area, indicates that a 21E may not be required, but, I can't guarantee anything. But it doesn't sound like it's absolutely, required in this case.
Scott?
I just don't know, but does 21E affect septic, or does septic affect 21E? Because that presumably has to get redone somehow for.
That's Title V, so
Okay, so
that's
it doesn't
totally
affect.
different.
Okay,
That's
okay.
and that still has to happen.
Okay.
I mean,
Yep.
from my perspective, and I know originally I had said that I thought we should have one in light of the fact that the lender's not requiring it. The Drew Farm doesn't want to, doesn't feel it's necessary. They'll bear the risk if something turns up and something happens. I'm comfortable in not requiring them to have a 21E.
Any other opinions? Yep, John?
I have a question. When we say award, we talk about award for the acquisition and construction. As I understand, the agreement is going forward that the funding we're provided is for the work or the construction. Is that correct?
Yeah, and again, you have counsel here, but acquisition's a term of art sometimes when you actually are acquiring a historic preservation restriction and acquiring a regulatory agreement on the property. You're giving funds for a stated purpose, and in return, we're giving restrictions on the property. So the town is still acquiring something with their funds, so that term's still relevant.
Okay, I understand we're supposed to get a separate agreement for the barn work or the work for Habitat for Humanity.
That's correct, and it's actually written into the CPA agreement now. Attorney Klein had added a section in there that said there will be a separate regulatory agreement.
So the work is really the construction work. The fitting, what we're talking about here is the work for the 5 apartments?
Correct.
So none of it goes toward the barn?
That's correct. That's right. That would be, the Habitat for Humanity would be responsible for those costs.
So the agreement with Habitat for Humanity, what would that look like?
We
Just in
haven't,
general terms.
we don't have that generally structured yet, but we would have to donate in kind that portion of the property, and then they would actually do 100% of the construction within that portion.
So you're going to donate that in kind to them? They're not going to pay anything or?
That's right.
Donate, okay.
And then they would be 100% responsible for the cost. Usually that's in volunteer labor. And then there is some cost to Habitat for actual services, engineers, plumbers, supplies that we can't get donated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have. Thank you. Sue, do you feel like you got the answer you're
Yes,
looking
and
for?
I'll defer to Attorney Klein. Do you need any actual action of the board, or is that sufficient?
The board is comfortable proceeding without the 21.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Thanks, Attorney Klein. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay. Next up for us is review the progress and act on the 35 Town Farm Road project. And is David going to be joining us?
Yes, he's coming on remotely, and Mr. Chair, I'll speak to this briefly as well.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
I think he's coming on, but just, I'll give the board a general overview of where we are. There's David. Again, I'm here, I'm Melissa Robbins. I'm here on behalf of Choice and SCG Partners, just giving this board an update on 35 Town Farm Road, and here to tell you everything is going fantastic. We've had a great first meeting with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Your town staff, your town board members really have gone out of their way. I want to thank Jeremy and Paul for keeping engineering in-house. They got their review done before our first meeting, which means that we are actually almost done engineering. We've responded to all of their comments. We had some initial concerns of the board as to snow removal, parking, pedestrian access. I think we'll be able to address all of those concerns tomorrow night at the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's important for us that we get the meat of this project done tomorrow, because December really is an important date for us, and that we'd like to get a decision for the Zoning Board of Appeals in December. No, I'm not generally this pushy. I never would expect to get a 40B permit done in 90 to 120 days, I know. But David's here, and I'll let him speak quickly about it, but we're getting up against a very important deadline, which is January funding. So if we actually have our decision in December, it means that we can go to that January funding round and hopefully get funded in that first round. So David, if you just want to speak to that quickly.
Sure, I have a 30-minute presentation regarding this project. Good evening, select board members and Kristen and our council. I'd like just to say we had our kickoff conversation with EOHLC today regarding this project, and we are submitting a pre-application next week and a $1,000 check, and we are expected to be in the February. They're calling it the February round. It'll be our first official round, and if we are funded, we will know and be closing within 9 months. So timing-wise, I know people get concerned that they don't see things moving fast enough. Best scenario, application goes in February, 9 months later we're closing, so at the end of 2024, and 12 months later we would have occupancy. which would be the end of 2025, early 2026. This is round one. If round one does not happen, it doesn't always, it very rarely does it happen in the first round. We have a mini round that would be coming up in July, which we have more of a chance because I've already seen it once. And again, if it goes in July of 2024, 9 months later, we're in March of 2025, occupancy sometime March of 2026. Worst case scenario, we're looking at February 2025 submission. And we're looking at end of 2026 occupancy, early 2027. So keep that in mind as we move forward as well with the 35 units of senior housing and a new food pantry for the town of Westford. That's a time frame I think may be helpful to the Council on Aging as well. So that's where we are. And just there are some slides that were provided to the select board and to the community just to show we've gone through a process of modifying the design from the initial idea that we had for the addition off the rear. Now that we've refined it, we have not selected colors, we have not selected plantings. What we're looking at having is the physical layout, where the corners of the building are going to be. And if I can just show you real quick, you can see the front of the building. It's going to look 100 times better than it does today. And as you look down, and let's just stay on this slide just for one moment. As we look towards the back, the back will be the 35 units, and the entranceway to this building is where the arches are in the middle of the building. And I can show you on the site plan, which is like the next slide, correct? So people are going to be entering from that area there. So we can go to the site plan here because I'm not going to take much of your time. So where the one is, there are currently all parking spots there. So you have an asphalt, there's nothing really, there's a little bit of grass in front of the building, but we're going to be restoring at least grass to the front, removing significant number of parking spots in the front there. There'll be parking in the front and on the side towards where the 5 is for the food pantry. The food pantry is only going to be as it is now, two days per week, a period of 3 hours. And as you enter below the 1, it's going to be one-way traffic going through the front of the building, and then towards the 2, the 3, and the 4 is going to be where the residents will be parking. Just so everyone hears it, where the 3 is the main entrance. Residents, when they're coming into this building, are all going to be, rushing for the parking spots closest to where the 3 is. Now, I just want everyone to know, even with Helena Crocker that's opening, and Village at Mystery Spring, the average parking requirement for our senior housing is at the most 0.65 per unit. So for every unit, it's like every 2 units, we have about 1 car, or slightly more than 1 car. So with 35 units, we're somewhere needing around 23 parking spots. This plan here provides more than that. And in addition, the Westford Fire Department is providing access to an additional 12 parking spots beyond where the number 4 is. So we've been able to address the parking, and we're going to be good neighbors to the food pantry, and the food pantry is going to be good neighbors to us. We've had a number of meetings, and we're really excited to work together collaboratively on this. And just so you all know, we are still sticking with the RFP and the historic restriction that the select board had improved and we had negotiated. And we'll continue to engage with the town as we move forward on this project. And we look forward to closing with the ZBA for the actual layout of the building. Just to show you, I'll go back real quick. The front of the building, you can see where the purple is. That is where the food pantry offices are going to be, and the light blue is where some of the food storage is going to be. We're going to be using the lower white part of the historic building for our resident services or resident programming. In the rest of the building in the rear, we'll have 2 elevators and will predominantly be 1-bedroom units with a very limited number of studios. The studios will be about 500 square feet. And I won't get into all the details of the building, but right now I think we're in a very good place. And I think when projects like this go forward, we are so blessed to be in Westford because this is a project with the town, for the town, and with some great partners. And I think we're going to make it through okay.
It's very exciting. Questions for either David or for Attorney Robbins? Yeah, John.
David, if you don't make the first round, do you see any issues that may crop up as far as funding?
Oh, not at all. And so sadly, this is how things go every single year. You know, when we went in for Helena Crocker, you know, we went in for the first round and there was more challenges with that building because it was a smaller building. It was only 18 units. This building is right in the sweet spot because if we have a project of at least 33 units, we are competing with the rest of the team. So just so you know, like we have a pipeline of projects that are lining up. Finally, Town Farm now is at the front of the line. So we're going in, we're submitting 2 projects, one in Sandwich, which has already gone through once, and we're submitting Town Farm. If right now the federal budget, we're waiting for some funds to be approved, well, to be available again. State tax credits have increased significantly with the tax reform bill from the state. And with the new bond bill that's proposed by the governor, which will hopefully be approved by the legislature, even if it's not the exact dollar that's proposed, significant funds are coming into our developments that are in the pipeline. So realistically, I would say to you, as I say to everyone, we're always looking at a 3 to 5 year window from when, you know, when we have our permit in hand. So 3 years, if all goes well, we submit in February, 3 years will be done. Worst case scenario, 5 years we'll be opening the doors. So I'm not worried about money. There's money, we're gonna get it.
I'd like to hear that.
Any other questions for David or for Attorney Robbins? Just Chris.
Yeah, question for you, David. Is there any consideration for sidewalks in the front of that property? I didn't see it in the conceptuals.
I can speak to that, David, if you want. So that was one of the questions for the Zoning Board of Appeals as well. And you know, as you go out of that site and go left, there's really not a lot of opportunities for sidewalks or even additions there. But as you leave the site and go to the right, towards the Rogers Fire Station, there's actually a concrete walkway that exists there in front of the Rogers Fire Station. So we've actually increased our pedestrian amenity now. It's not shown on that plan because it's new, but we're gonna come out of our site, take a right, and put in a sidewalk and connect to the Rogers Fire Station concrete walkway in front of their building. And then it will go off to an angle and actually connect to the existing crosswalk. So you can go across Town Farm Road or take a right and go towards St. Catherine's Church. So you'll be able to connect directly to all those sidewalk connections.
Great, thank you. Appreciate
And I think
that.
I sent a rough sketch to you last week, so you might have that in your email box.
All right, perfect.
I love that question because I love sidewalks and I also love trees. And the 2 things that we looked at was if we were gonna put the sidewalk in without looking at anything, we were gonna be mowing down all the trees that were in front of the fire station. It's the last thing I'd wanna do. So working with the town, we found this, a scenario that actually I think will work much better and accomplish the goals of what we wanna see. So thanks for that question.
Okay. Questions for public?
There was one that came in online. It was about adequate trash and recycling. I did see an 18 by 18 foot enclosure. I think that question's probably better served, discussed at the ZBA meeting tomorrow
Yes.
evening.
Great. And just for whoever requests, what time is that meeting and what's the best way to join?
It's at 7 o'clock tomorrow in this room. They do not have a Zoom link. You will have to meet
They're
in person,
live,
although you can watch it on Westford Cable Access Television. And you can send your questions and email ahead of time for the board to see.
Super. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Dave has one left.
Oh, hey, Dave. Go for it.
Just the one question is when we submit for February, I will be looking for a letter of support from any and all, you know, parties, the Council on Aging, and I would like to be able to ask, you know, Kristen or the Select Board for a letter of support, and I didn't know if that was something that would have to be voted on or just something Kristen would be able to provide us with.
I think the consensus is that we'd be very happy to support that. So be very, very happy to do that, David.
Thank you.
Sue.
Hi, Sue Thomas, Sustainability Coordinator, 7 Old Homestead. I had the great opportunity to speak with the architect, which was wonderful. And one of the things we discussed was the possibility of moving the bathtub for the mechanicals a little bit to allow for solar on the south face or the best facing roofs. I don't know where that went or when the appropriate time to bring that up is, but I just thought if I send an email to the ZBA, I'm happy to do that. I just never heard the resolution to that.
So, I can.
Yep, David, please.
Sure, it was great. They really enjoyed meeting with you. Both Janice and Kurt came back to me and was quite excited. So yes, solar ready for the top was one of my things that I was pushing for them. And that bathtub is going to be the bane of my existence. So as we go through this process, believe me, I am pushing very hard to make sure that we can get as much space available for the solar on the roof. And we are electrifying. We're actually using, all electric for the hot water, which is, making some people very uncomfortable. But we are going that way, not because it's only the right thing to do, but it's also what the state is requiring us to do. And because of your input, we're talking more about, the beds, the growing of vegetables, composting. I mean, you really provided an amazing impact to my team. So I want to say thank you for sharing your voice and continue to be a voice and connect with us, because Janice and Kirk and I appreciate you.
Oh, I was thrilled to be included, and it was a really fruitful discussion, and I'm glad you were able to incorporate so much. But, I'm an optimizer, so I'm still thinking about the solar. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you. Okay, David, I think we can let you go. Thanks, Melissa. I think we let you go too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all you do.
Have a great evening.
Take care.
Next up for us is continuation of discussion and act on the renewing contract with the Comanche. As you may recall, the last piece of this is which direction we want the waste flow to go, contract with E.L. Harvey, continuing with Covantia.
So thank you. At your request, we reached back out to E.L. Harvey to get some additional information related to the two proposals that are before you. And you have a memo from myself dated November 9th in your packet. The first method is the proposal from Covanta to continue, as the town of Westford has done for many, many years, to truck solid waste up to Haverhill to be processed at their burning facility, and then the ash would be placed in an ash landfill. That is at a cost of $99.77 per ton. We do note in the memo that there have been substantial wait times up at Covanta. That constitutes the vehicles running diesel fuel emissions. An additional hour cost to us would be $150 per truck per wait time. So the idling and the combustibles are really in play there. We are having a tough time, quantifying the CO2 or the carbon monoxide or whatever it is. So unfortunately, I don't have that information for you this evening. The second method is trucking the waste to Harvey's facility in Fitchburg and then railing to a landfill in Alabama. The cost for this disposal is $95 per ton. We do not anticipate any wait times related to tipping at that point. And then there would be obviously emissions with the trucks going to Fitchburg. I mean, there's obviously emissions trucks going to Haverhill now. And then whatever emissions there are related to railing over to Alabama. And then that is a traditional landfill. It is not an ash landfill. So we just note those items for your consideration. Currently, there are not electric options for either at this point in time. And then at the bottom of the memo, we do have the cost breakdown for you. The Fitchburg transfer station versus Covanta, we're seeing about a $35,000 savings going to the transfer station in year 1, up to a $40,000 savings in year 5, with an overall savings to the contract of $186,000. Again, we were struggling with coming up with a metric related to the emissions related to that. We had Sue Thomas, our sustainability coordinator, weigh in on that, as well as E.L. Harvey's specialists. So this is for your consideration this evening related to how the board wishes to transfer their waste for the next 5 years.
So we, with gratitude for doing the additional research and finding out what we could about that. Perspectives from the board, Chris?
I just would like to know if, I think Sue, what do you have a recommendation on either of these two approaches?
This is a difficult one from a carbon perspective and from a financial perspective. With the research that I did, you have to remember that the rail isn't just the rail. It's getting to the rail yard, railing, moving to the landfill, moving it around the landfill. So my guess is, best case, the carbon is equal between the two options, but most likely it's actually worse with rail, even though rail traditionally might be considered better than diesel at Covanta. I'm concerned about leaving the collaborative that we have and what we might do at the end of this contract if we didn't have the opportunity to rail out of state. I think we would be limited in our options for state disposal at that point, given the expectation that disposal options will decrease over that period. So even though finances are difficult and it would be more expensive to go with Covanta strategically, not speaking environmentally, but strategically, I think it might be better to stick with our current arrangement. But, you know, that's outside the scope of my job. But that's
Well, I appreciate your perspective, though. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
And I can just add to that, we've been working with an eight municipal collaborative related to the Covanta contract. Chelmsford has signed on with Covanta, Dracut has signed on with Covanta, and I believe there's 3 other municipalities. It's not to sway you either way, it's just to give you the information that, Chelmsford is using E.L. Harvey for the next 4 years. They're in I believe, their first year of a 5-year contract.
Any other perspectives? Yep, John?
Is Chelmsford using the long range, going to take it to Alabama?
No, they're going to Haverhill with Covanta.
Any opinions? I mean, in general from the work, so I appreciate the research. Anything I could find says it's sort of a draw, and so I would be inclined to go with the lower cost option. So I feel like we're under such tight pressure that, I mean, that amount of money is, you know, those are services we can be providing, and I don't think it's compelling really either way that one is better than the other from an environmental perspective. Yeah, go ahead.
That's probably the same because you have, but from a strategy perspective, I mean, if it's all about money and emissions, I think, yeah, go to Alabama because I don't think emissions is that big a difference either way. But I don't want to create a problem for our board 5 years from now if we've locked into Alabama and we can't get back into. So I guess from your standpoint, as a strategic decision, is that going to cost us or not, do you think?
You know, I'm leaning towards financial aside. I think staying with Covanta and giving our allocation is a smarter strategic plan item, but obviously it's a toss-up right now with the constraints that we're in as a municipality.
What's the perceived risk of not being able to get back in? Is that something you've seen any communities actually encounter?
Yes, that they'll give our allocation to another municipality who's looking for it, and then there won't be allocation for us in the future.
So there have been municipalities that can't find places to send their trash because they can't get an allocation and they can't find another option like Yale Harvey's proposing?
They would find the other option of railing it out if that were it.
But I suppose 5 years from now, who knows what that
Things
cost.
could change, yep.
Who knows what that cost could be in railing it out. I share your concern as much as I look at that $186,000 and think, oh boy, I'd really like to save that money over the next 5 years. I also think strategically I'm worried about what happens if we give our allocation away and we can't get it back and we end up having to rail out 5 years from now and it costs us even more. So
And this is based upon our current tonnage. We've been having conversations about how to reduce our tonnage as well. So the costs in either scenario could go down if we can have a strategic campaign on Westford residents reducing their solid waste tonnage.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I see the risk the same way, but it sounds like the consensus of the board is that there is some perceived risk, and so there's more comfort going with Covanta.
we should probably take a vote.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Because I'll have to be signing a contract either way.
So I'll move that we support the Covanta.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so it's 4-1. Do you have what you need there on that issue?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we move off of that issue though, Tom, so are we ever gonna come back and talk about, you know, how many trash cans we wanna allow and all that? When does that occur, that conversation?
So I'm finalizing the contract terms with Harvey right now. We were going to be inviting the Recycling Commission back for their input. So I have not had too much conversation with them, Tom. I don't know if you've had further conversation.
Not except that we've asked them to help us put together sort of a communication plan and other things to help
and policy.
reduce the waste.
So I would anticipate, January timeframe to give us enough time. We want to really ramp up the campaign March, April, May to get people ready for the July 1st start.
Sounds good, thank you.
And thank you, Kristen and Sue and everybody
Yeah.
else who has done this research and put all of this together. It's been a lot of work, but it's been really helpful.
Yeah, I just think back to, we used to have this notion that all our recycling could go to China until it couldn't.
Right.
And then, so,
And then what do you do
we
with it?
always real out of state until we can't, so.
Okay, next item, review and act to adopt an EPA grievance policy.
Sure. So associated with the $500,000 EPA grant for brownfields remediation at 12 North Main Street, the EPA requires that the town establish a disability non-discrimination policy. So you have that before you in your packet.
Do we not have one?
We do not have one. So we worked with Labor Council and HR over the course of the past month and a half to create this policy. It is a draft also based upon the what EPA would allow and require. So we'd be asking the board to review and adopt this policy so we can move forward with this grant as well as have this non-discrimination policy as part of our overall municipal.
Yep.
So you've worked with town?
Yes, Labor Council has reviewed and vetted this.
It talks about a non-discrimination coordinator.
Yep.
Do we have one?
Yes, I believe that is the HR director.
Okay. And then, kind of just separate and apart from this, this did get me thinking, I think it was last spring when we were still on Zoom, we had a couple of closed caption hearings, and there was going to be follow-up to that, whether we would be able to make that available on a permanent basis. As I look at this and read this, and it says that we will make available, reasonable accommodations. Whatever happened to that? Are we making closed caption available?
I believe we had an update from WestfordCAT related to closed captioning.
If we did, I forget.
I will get an update from them. I don't know, Scott, do
I
you
don't
remember?
remember, I don't remember either, no.
I don't remember.
I do remember getting an update from them, and they were looking at certain options, but I will definitely get the board more information.
I remember them, you're right, I remember them saying they were looking at options, but I guess what I don't remember is whether any of those options have been implemented.
Sure. Yep. No, I'll get an update to the board on that.
Okay, thanks. Anything else on that? I guess we need to review and or act and adopt.
Yes, please.
Any other questions or concerns about the policy itself? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
So move, a second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you so much. Consider request to appoint election officers listed in the meeting packet for a term to expire July 31st, 2024. Any questions about the election officers put forward, or?
Move to appoint.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Board reports and updates. Any board reports or updates tonight? Okay, I don't see any. Minutes for approval, we already did. Town manager's report. Please take it away, Kristen.
Great, and Sue Thomas, the Sustainability Coordinator, is available as well, and Christina Green, who's a member of the Finance Committee, is available for item A. We have been investigating options, again, of how to reduce solid waste in the town of Westford, and I believe an easy lift is to ask the select board to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Bootstrap Compost, which would provide for composting services to town residents. They would pay for the service, but Bootstrap would be the vendor in town. It is not an exclusive vendorship, so a resident could choose to go with another vendor, but there is, I believe, and Sue can correct me if I'm wrong, a better pricing going with Bootstrap for residents rather than their own vendor that might just be a different option. So, Sue, do you have anything you want to add related before the board has a further conversation?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, well, first of all, curbside would be a distant second to composting at home, which the Recycling Commission has been promoting, and I have for many years now, but we're not making enough progress in getting people to reduce their waste. So this is really timely for those festivities and feasting we're going to be doing in the coming months. to get people to maybe sign up for composting and get used to separating their food waste, and maybe eventually then do it at home or continue to do it curbside, where you can compost a few more items curbside in a commercial composter than you could in your backyard. So there would be ongoing benefits to this. It is slightly cheaper than the other vendors that might come to town. Other vendors are looking at coming to town, so it's not exclusive. But in this case, we would be able to collect diversion data, so we would know how much is Bootstrap is removing from our waste stream, which would give us some more numbers. We can get those numbers indirectly because theoretically our trash tonnage would go down, but this will give us, more finite and precise numbers from that vendor. And the hope is that in 2024, there is ongoing interest in having a drop-off site in town, that we might investigate that kind of resident paid service for people who are interested in that as well. So offering an array of options for food waste diversion. Additionally, I'm working with Westford Climate Action to put together a neighbor-to-neighbor two-part event in the spring where we would talk about reducing food waste so that it doesn't exist. How do you plan your shopping, your cooking, your planning of your food so that you're not producing food waste? And then the second part would be in conjunction with the Recycling Commission and other neighbors about how to compost at home. So we're trying to work on kind of an array of things on food waste because it is so heavy and it is mostly water, and there's nothing redeeming about burning water at the incinerator from a carbon point of view. So it addresses all of the objectives of the town.
Any questions about this? Yeah, Chris?
Can I just add, outside of this, we're also looking at potential for composting at the school facilities and other town facilities. That would not be included in this MOU at this point in time, but Bootstrap does provide those types of services, and the facilities director is looking at that as a cost, what the cost would be and what cost savings we would have for trash and recycling, solid waste.
I mean, that was basically my question, but as a corollary to that, has Recycling Commission, has anybody tried to work with the schools on doing this type of
Oh my
separation
goodness,
of
yes.
waste?
So we have a program at Westford Academy, run by Westford Community Compost, which is an all-volunteer
Oh, they have that one, but
organization.
at the younger.
We have, I have personally, as has Christina Green and other members of the Recycling Commission over the years, and we've personally taken kitchen waste from the cafeterias over to either a farm at one point and to Westford Academy.
I
for
mean, any like
composting.
having the students actually
Yep,
separate
at
their waste?
Crisafulli, we had a program going for a while. The problem that we have, well, there are a number of problems, but the biggest one is keeping a champion in the school to keep that program going when the volunteers are no longer there. And so the schools, having adopted a sustainability goal in their school improvement plans, I have not had a chance to review all 9 of them, but the constant refrain I hear from a lot of parents is, why aren't we doing this in the schools? So I think there is an opportunity to take the Westford Academy program and push it down to the middle school level and to those schools who have had experience with it before. As you get into the lower and lower grades, it's easier to develop those habits among our young people, but their lunch and recess periods are very constrained. And so we're adding another step before they can get to recess, and that's important. At
Just to keep
lower
focused on this MOU for tonight, we are asking the Recycling Commission to come and give a broader view of all of this. So we will have a chance to have them come and present and talk about that in some detail. Yep.
I was looking at their contract, and it talks about Westford's obligations, and there's a lot of stuff in here about allowing them access to town facilities, mailing lists, sending out mailings. We're going to help them mail stuff to our residents. Has anybody looked at this as far
Town
as...
council wrote this.
Town council wrote it?
Yes.
Well, then I withdraw my question.
Okay. Yeah, it was much less detailed as they proposed it to us, and we came back with more. The intent here is solely to allow them to leverage their marketing and our marketing together. There are no people coming into our schools. That's not the intent. The intent is to help market.
Any other questions regarding the MOU itself? Okay, if there aren't, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I can take this one.
Yeah, onward.
So in the past, the town applied for the Municipal Energy Technical Assistance Program grant, the META grant, and were able to obtain the owner's agent of Beth Greenblatt to do the initial Amoresco work for us. That money has run out. We believe that we're on a positive path with Amoresco moving forward with the investment grade audit that the board heard several weeks ago. We would like your authorization to apply for this grant again to secure Beth's services when we're reviewing that IGA and moving forward into marketing with town meeting and informing the public. So this is no cost to the town. It's just we would need your signature to authorize the application of the grant, and that is due on Friday. So we apologize for the late insertion, but wanted to make sure we had your approval before we applied for the grant.
My motion is to go for it.
Absolutely.
In a second.
That's a second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, and then we'll move towards contracts. There's quite a few as we've had 3 weeks in between our meetings and there's a lot going on. I'll read them off. If anyone wants to hold, just please speak up, or if there's any questions.
Actually, can we hold on the water department, there, 3 or 4 contracts that have to do with PFAS? I just need to understand what those contracts are for and how they interact with one another.
So Mark Warren is on the line. Why don't we take that now, if you'd like?
That sounds great.
Up to the chair, whatever.
Okay,
Let's do it.
great. So, Mark, thanks for joining us. We have several items. I think PFAS is item D7. Andrea, which ones would you like to talk about?
7's definitely one of them.
So actually, I was looking, there's 2, 5, 7.
Is it 3 as well?
No, 3 was Francis Hill Storage, that was
You're
something
okay with
different.
that? Okay.
And 4, so,
Hey, Mark.
so yeah,
Here.
2, 4, 5,
Good
and
evening,
7.
all.
2, 4, 5, and 7, Mark. Thank you.
Sure, so this, let's see, I'll start with the PFAS pilot study. So we're looking to sign a proposal with Blue Leaf. They're a company that's actually going to perform our side stream pilot study at our forest plant, which means it's an actual study of 3 different sample matrices that we're considering to use for PFAS treatment. The DEP actually did approve our study today, so we're moving forward with this. But so that amount, that $91,000, is for the actual conducting of this side stream pilot study. Again, to see which filter media is the best media to remove PFAS. So that is what the Blue Leaf proposal is about. We also have the preliminary design proposal with Ty and Bond, and that is for the preliminary design of the PFAS treatment plants at our Forge and Nutting locations. Some of those activities are going to be geotechnical investigations, developing preliminary plans of the actual facilities and the actual process trains. This was critical because right now we are actually involved in the state revolving fund program. We have a project in with SRF that's undergoing consideration right now. If the project is approved, then we're going to have to go to town meeting next year in March to ask for appropriation. And this preliminary design will give us a sort of a head start. It'll give us a better idea of what we're actually looking for construction of the 2 plants. And that's critical because to be part of the SRF program in this round, we have to have money appropriated by the end of June of 2024. I think that's it. for PFAS.
No, no, wait, I'm sorry, how does this proposal tie in with Blue Leaf? I'm just trying to figure out how they all work together.
Sure. Sure. Well, it definitely ties in. Blue Leaf, it's part of So what Blue Leaf is going to do is when a water supplier wants to change any sort of treatment procedures, treatment processes, we have to get approval from DEP. And part of that approval process is actually piloting the types of media or systems you want to put into these new treatment plants. So that's what Blue Leaf is for. That's what the pilot study is for, is to test certain materials to see which one will work best for PFAS treatment. The tie and bond proposal, that's for preliminary design of the actual plants. Does that clarify things a little bit, or?
So one helps you prototype and prove out the process, and the other is actually for the plant itself. Okay. Scott?
Well, I mean, I get the fact they're related. I'm just trying to figure out why the state doesn't know what works best for PFAS already. I mean, why are we testing different approaches when I would hope the state knows what the best approach is, or
Our water chemistry is different than other towns' water chemistry, and that reacts differently with the PFAS. So that's why, unfortunately, every municipal system has to go through this. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that is exactly correct. Every system has to really pilot any sort of new treatments, especially PFAS. And Kristen, like what you said, what works best in air may not necessarily work best in Westford, and that is due to the water chemistry.
Okay.
Andrew, does that help?
Yeah, but then we have but then we're looking for $243,800 for a contract with Dancris Builders, and which again says for treatment plant filter number 3 repairs.
Sorry. Yeah, that has nothing to do with PFAS. One of our green sand filters at our Forge plant has we've been losing filter media. We believe the underdrain system is somehow compromised. So this really has nothing to do with PFAS at all. It's just part of our system isn't working properly right now. We have to have it repaired and put back in line.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. And then the last one, so we have 2 tag and bond ones. One's for $245,000 and one's for $22,000.
Correct.
Okay, I get that the $245,000 is for
sorry, the $245,000. Oh, sorry, bear with me for 1 second.
The 245 is attached to the Blue Leaf for PFAS.
Right.
Correct.
The 22,000 is tied with the Dacaris Builders.
Okay.
For the filter of number 3.
Yes.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Now I'm clear.
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we go back to the top? And again, if there's other holds, please just sound off.
So we're on contracts, K-Logic LLC for the renewal of iBoss security software and services in the amount of $20,976 as requested by the Technology Department. Dacaris Builders Corporation for construction services for the Forge Village Water Treatment Plant, filter number 3 for repairs in the amount of $243,800 as requested by the Water Department. Tie and bond for professional engineering services for the Francis Hill Water Storage Tank Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $98,000 as requested by the Water Department. Tie and bond for professional engineering services for the Forge Village Water Treatment Plant number 3 repairs in the amount of $22,000 as requested by the Water Department. Blue Leaf Incorporated for the PFAS pilot study professional engineering services in the amount of $91,000 as requested by the Water Department. Scott's Tree and Landscaping for a 1-year contract extension for the sidewalk snow removal services in the amount of $36,500 as requested by the Public Works Department. Just a note, we will bring the Oak Hill proposal to you at the next meeting. We got the quotes. Steve is going through those now, but we will have funds to do that. I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt.
that was my hold. so
Okay,
thank you.
all right. Tie-in bond for preliminary design services for the Forge Village and Nutting Road PFAS water treatment plants in the amount of $245,000 as requested by the Water Department. So I'll hold there for contracts.
Any additional questions? Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Again, purchase orders is quite hefty as well. I will go slower in case there's any holds. Jarvis Ford for 3 budgeted 2025 Ford Police and Scepter utility hybrids in the amount of $147,273 as requested by the police department. This was approved under the fiscal year 24 budget, and those will be hybrid vehicles. We need to put the purchase order in to get the vehicles constructed, and then we'd be paying the bill once those vehicles are ready. Nighthawks track programs for the provision of the following fiscal 24 recreation programs: fall track and field, winter track and field, and spring track and, I believe that should say winter. I apologize for the typo. And the amount of $13,852 as requested by the Recreation Department. Wave guide for fiber installation at the fire training grounds on Forge Village Road in the amount of $11,183 and change as requested by the fire department. Lexipol for annual fire policy manual, an annual fire supplemental manual, and annual fire procedures in the amount of $10,268 and change as requested by the fire department. The next one is under $10,000, but I wanted the board to approve this as this is your allocation to the 495 Metro as partnership, your yearly municipal investment of $500 for fiscal 24. Guardian Energy Management Solutions for the attic pipe and duct installation for the police department in the amount of $46,022 as requested by the facilities department. Guardian Energy Management Solution for air sealing of the eaves and soffits of the police department as requested by the facilities department.
There's no
And
dollar.
there's no dollar amount. I need to look into that.
Okay, so do you want to take that out then?
I
and bring
probably have
back?
it in the packet. I just need to look at the dollar amount.
Okay.
Guardian Energy Management for the retro commissioning work at the police station in the amount of $45,939 as requested by facilities. Microsoft for software licensing and the amount of $52,112 and change by the technology department, and Prestio for technical services software update for our phone systems in the amount of $16,320. So let me just take a look.
Let's see if there's any questions, or if we can move forward to the vote with all of them except Roman numeral 7.
And actually, the cost of that portion is $58,364.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, excellent. Correspondence.
Move to waive reading.
Second.
All in favor? And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Westford.
Good night, Westford. Be safe.